It's the Redirect Podcast, search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
And good morning. Welcome back to the Redirect Podcast. It's Friday, May 19th. I'm Jason, founder of Black Truck Media and Marketing. I'm here today with team members Patrick and Ashley, and we're going to jump right in and get started with kind of some of the latest updates and news that we've been reading in the search industry. The first piece that I have to share and to discuss with everyone is actually comes from the team over at Distilled. So Will Critchlow and the team at Distilled wrote a really great piece this week on Amazon's losing their one-click patent this year. So the one-click checkout patent, that if you're an existing Amazon customer, Amazon Prime customer, and you're used to going in and adding, we're all used to normally just adding maybe multiple things to our cart, but people that are ordering one item, frequently returning and ordering that same item, we've known that for the past couple of years, Amazon's done their subscription-based model where, you can have toilet paper and paper towels show up at your house. I think that's a little weird to order from Amazon, but nonetheless, they have had a patent on that. They actually sued back in, I think it was 99, Will talks about. They sued Barnes & Noble because Barnes & Noble tried to do that.
In 99?
In 99. And that was resolved in 2002. And Barnes & Noble ended up removing the one-click checkout process.
What was Amazon like in 1999?
I mean, they were online books, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they started as an online book retailer.
That's true.
So that was always their goal. But I think it's really interesting that while not everyone listening to this is an e-commerce player, perhaps, but if you do have any type of e-commerce capabilities, especially if you have, it plays really well for those types of services, products that are repetitive, that you need to kind of re-up all the time. Because I wouldn't see this as being advantageous for someone if... clearly it's not going to be advantageous if you, I don't want to go as far as saying necessarily you haven't been to a site before, but it's probably better suited for something that has a continuous user base or returning user base. So Will actually goes on and does a really great example in his article and actually uses SearchLove, which is an event we'll be attending in June. He uses SearchLove as a really good example in comparing a Google Analytics and all users that are purchasing tickets versus a returning users that are purchasing tickets. So I didn't dive that deep into it to see if his segmentation was actually returning users who had purchased a ticket before. So I don't want to call Will out a little bit on that to say that the data is skewed a little bit to make that claim, but I would be more curious about this being, is this a one-click checkout for a single item, or are you trying to increase repeat visitors, repeat purchases from your repeat visitors? So, yeah. And additional readings and additional sources that Will cites, they talk about that could be worth billions of dollars to Amazon in terms of their one-click checkout. So,
Wow.
Yeah, found that to be really interesting. So while it's maybe not applicable to everyone, to every industry, it's certainly probably once all the legal issues settle down, we're probably going to see a lot more of that elsewhere. So you're probably familiar with it. Both of you guys are Apple, strict Apple users from an iPhone perspective. I'm not, but you'll notice that Apple has a one-click checkout. Apple has licensed the one-click from Amazon. So that's an interesting twist of things. So I think as soon as that curtain drops, you're going to start to see some developers adding things to a lot of the popular checkout e-commerce platforms, like a Shopify or a WooCommerce or something like that. Maybe even Etsy.
Yeah.
Pat, you play in the Etsy place.
So when you own a patent that sets you apart like that and it becomes public, That was how Nextel died, basically.
Oh, really?
Nextel's big thing was their touch-to-talk, the two-way communications.
Oh, yeah.
When their patent expired on that and it went wide, they just kind of fell by the wayside because people stuck with Nextel because they could do the two-way walkie-talkie thing. And then everyone's like, well, if everybody else has it, there's no reason for me to stick with Nextel. Maybe their service area doesn't go. And then that's why Nextel fell off the grid.
Thank God, because did you really want to?
No.
Could you imagine? Here we are, 2017, listening to the
Right.
damn beep beep.
Yeah, there was other things too. Like I think Sprint acquired Nextel, and then texting started expanding. The popularity of texting.
Probably around the same time the advent of the BlackBerry.
Yeah.
And
Right.
heavy text. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
I'll jump in. Google just rolled out at their big conference an improved Google Assistant, and it's now becoming available on the iPhone. And it's being touted as a competitor for Siri. It can do a lot of the different things that Siri can, and there's different segments being rolled out. But one of the built-in features of it is something called Google Lens, which is kind of like what maybe you've heard of Google Goggles from years ago, where Google Goggles you could take a picture of a logo and it would search it and tell you that it's. I remember the first time I read it, I was driving a Saab car at the time. I took a picture of the Saab logo and it took me to the Saab website. I thought that was kind of cool. Well, now, if you take a picture, the example that they show here in the keynote, he took a picture of a marquee of a name of a show, a concert, and the Google Lens recognized the name of the band, took you to show information and where you could buy tickets.
Interesting.
So it's more feature rich and more intelligent based rather than just recognizing a logo.
But weren't we just talking about this though the other day that I believe you had mentioned, Patrick, that Etsy has had this for a while. Actually, I think you were in on the discussion too about Pinterest and like if I wanted to zoom in, maybe it was a men's belt or a women's belt, and I wanted to zoom in on the belt, so it was an accessory and an image in the shot, and I could zoom in on that and essentially say, find me this.
Jessica from next door told us.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I don't.
Maybe it's not new and not neat, and maybe it's a gimmick, but it's another feature that's out there. It's available. My thought process behind it. Okay, so I don't categorize myself as an Apple fanboy, but I use a lot of Apple products because I think they work and it's fluid with making my household system and everything work and communicate together. I've bought in, I guess is what you could say. But
I think you're a fanboy.
Yeah. At the same time, there's that notion that we always say in here is stick with what you're good at. You know, and Google is good at search. And if they are building a new and improved search product, I'm going to lean more towards that. You know, going back to Apple Maps versus Google Maps. No matter the improvements that Apple Maps put in, I'm always going to stick with Google Maps because I think Apple Maps is far inferior to the Google Maps. And I think if Google's going to continue to add more features to their search functionality, especially when I'm driving or doing things out and about or on the move on the go, this whole speak to search thing that's coming forward, I'm going to keep pushing that. And if the Google version on my iPhone is going to do the trick, I'm not even going to waste my time with Siri.
Yeah.
Siri has limitations.
Siri isn't always very helpful.
No.
When you, as a non-iPhone user and being completely oblivious to it, excuse me, when you ask Siri for directions, does it default to Apple Maps or can you default it to Google Maps?
I haven't dug in to see if that feature is there. I think if there's some clicking and some paused hold, I'm not sure, like the soft touch or whatever it's called. I think you can get an option to go to the other map.
But it's not a default. It's not defaulted.
No, it doesn't default through. And I just find that the conversational element to Siri is very lacking.
Yeah.
The stat I saw in here, it said 70% of whatever it is. 70% of queries use natural language, not keywords style. So it's the natural language side. If you try to do a natural language conversation with Siri, it's not functional.
But I think back to our original piece. This goes back probably 2 months ago on AI and machine learning and stuff, and knowing that, you know, Siri wasn't the first to the game. It was one of the first to market from a personal assistant perspective, and that whole voice recognition. And of course, it's going to be choppy, but I don't know if it's ever really, you know, how much has that evolved? How much has that shifted?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's really good to be the new kid on the block, first out, early adopter. Then sometimes it's okay to kind of sit back and wait and go, let's see what we can do different. I'm anxious to see where it goes. But to your point too, Patrick, on the whole philosophy of if Google's going to continue to be really good at search and integrating this whole personal assistant into like our lives, this is one. I mean, it is one to keep tabs on to see where it goes from an image search or whether it's image search, voice recognition, text recognition, that type of thing. So
Right.
Yeah.
And those are all conversations that we've had in here independently. You've even seen these articles. You know,
Yeah.
we just had a conversation about images the other day. You know. All right. So another article I read, more of just a passing note. AdWords is testing out a new expandable option in mobile.
Nice.
Yeah, so underneath an ad, you'll see a little down caret.
Oh.
It's like if you have a product, the examples it showed were prices. It was a Hotwire, it was a travel site. It shows where you can hit the caret and it'll expand. So here it closed and then open. So once you open it, you get a left-right carousel style option on it, and it's not just in the travel world. It showed regular retail where it opens up and you can scroll to see different search options in there. And I'm sure that's a didn't read about when the rollout is happening on that one.
Is that from the SEM post?
Yeah, this SEM post.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so that's just an interesting feature, you know, for clients that have that's e-commerce heavy. You know, I have a client in mind that maybe of ours that could explore that. I don't think they're currently doing PPC with us right now.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point. From Google tends to test these things. What I've noticed, and I'm sure others in the industry notice too, is they'll test them in like big audience, big market. So automotive, travel, like those are their go-tos, and beta test with major manufacturers or major brands. So the Hyatts of the world, or Hiltons, or Hotels.com, Travelocities and stuff.
Yeah.
And I wonder, did Jennifer Slag write this post? Did she go on to talk about? I'm curious if it's site link extensions or if it's just the pricing extensions that are now being reformatted for mobile,
Right.
or
Yeah,
it could be completely unknown.
She didn't really get into the nitty gritty as far as the how-tos and where are this information. It was more of just hey, this is available and this is what we're seeing. So she didn't actually say anything about going in. It says it's available in multiple countries, you know. So it's.
I'm curious too. I don't see anything about it in this particular post, but I'm curious too if you'll be able to see if people are clicking on that caret on these ads, because they might not interact any further on that first time seeing it. But
they may, you know, like in the example here, the Hotwire. It's showing you in this example, it says see 7 prices from $27 US.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, as a searcher, do I already know that the bottom price is $27, and do I even need to see the other ones that are higher priced?
Yeah, I know that we see really solid activity with a client of ours that's in the marine world that we're doing some pretty good PPC work with when it comes to pricing and using the price extensions. and doing a starting at, or maybe if there's financing involved, the automotive people are going to pick up on this too, where maybe it's a $199 a month lease. You can highlight that it's a particular, and you can go by model by model, and we can see that data at the extension level of activity. So click data, cost per click, conversions tying back to. I think it's really important. It's really something to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's just a test or a new rollout, it's going to be interesting to play with.
Yeah, good find. Ashley?
I found a recent series of posts on Search Engine Land, and it was a 3-part series on relevance versus authority for links, which link has more value. So part 1 was arguments from people in the industry one way, the second was arguments the other way. I was most interested in this third part coming out, which basically is, it depends.
Yeah. It's nothing is subjective at all in this world.
Right? So, so the question was, all other metrics being equal, would you rather have a high authority link with lower relevance or a highly relevant link with low authority?
So before you go on, what would your answers be? You're going to be a little bit biased, but Patrick, what would your...
I'd rather have highly relevant, low authority.
Yeah, and I would lean toward that mindset as well.
If it's a timely search,
yeah,
relevance is quality relevant content is going to weigh heavier than authority, because authority takes time to build.
I would agree with that, 100%. Especially if we take the user into account first and understand what they're reading. If it's not related and it's not relevant, then is that really? In my opinion, to loop it back around, is that really authoritative or not? Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, I think some of the people in the industry who have responded to this, and this was by Andrew Dennis, I think they would agree with what you just said, Patrick, a lot of these people. There was one person's response that really stood out to me, Amy Merrill. And she said, although I would love to draw a hard line in the sand and radically shout a decisive winner, it will always be a sliding scale filled with exceptions and nuance, just like SEO and link building should be. That's ultimately why a human element is so essential, because truly great SEO takes human thought and critical thinking. And so there was a line somewhere in here about... the high authority links might make more sense for content that's going to be more relevant, to use, for lack of a better word, in the long term. It's going to...
Evergreen.
Evergreen content, basically. So just for kicks, the total respondents whose answers vary depending on the situation was 8. Total respondents who chose relevance was 13, and total respondents who chose authority was 8. So it's just really interesting to read all the different responses, but I definitely am on the side of relevance for sure.
Well, good job, industry, that we're starting to think more that relevancy and maybe then, I don't know what I might say is the proper way. Glad that maybe everyone is more of a consensus now and headed in the right direction. So it goes back to that statement of really, and we've talked about it before, is that if you're doing things honestly, that is going to take time, and that is the true long-term play, or the marathon. But you're not being spammy about it. And if you do things that are spammy and it is completely irrelevant and not related, then my opinion is you should be penalized for that.
Search is thriving to become human, and based upon your tactics of just being authoritative has a tendency to be not human. Relevancy is human. So if you just keep pushing the human side of it, as long as it's good, clean, rich content, but done in a human element, that will ultimately shift towards authoritative.
That's really great. I'm gonna share a piece here from this one was shared quite a bit through social media channels this week. WordStream, the team at WordStream dropped what they're calling their State of Internet Marketing Agency in 2017. So what they were curious on, and WordStream, for many people that don't know what WordStream is, WordStream primarily is a platform that allows companies, businesses, agencies to utilize, you could say, machine learning algorithms to help them effectively manage PPC campaigns. And WordStream's been around for a number of years now, very well known in the industry. I think they do some really nice things, some good things. Have a lot of really great content out there. This one in particular is very interesting. As the founder of the company, I'm always interested to know how other agencies and other professionals either price their services for PPC, for SEO. How does everybody function, and how are we doing this? Are we doing our clients a good service as an industry? We know that there are people out there that are charging probably way more than they should for what they're doing. So what they give is a really, really nice breakdown of how agencies price. Is it flat fee, retainer based? Is it percentage of ad spend? Are you charging setup fees? What industries are people seeing the most growth in? So they do a really good job. It's not super deep in the weeds. This is really high level stuff. So it's not super geeky things. But the biggest things that stood out to me were, how are agencies getting compensated? So it's about a 50% scale, I should say, that are flat fee retainer based. And then, but then the next one is 28% of them are percentage of spend, or based off percentage of spend, which, as we know, is pretty common. And we at Black Truck kind of have a hybrid approach. We have a tiered hybrid approach, and I would say that's pretty similar to how many of the other good agencies, honest agencies, structure their compensation. The other interesting was, what kind of percentages are they doing? So the majority share being 39%, are charging anywhere from 15 to 20% of ad spend. And then there's some that are charging, there's 19% that are charging over 20% of ad spend. So that's kind of interesting there. And there are some that are charging lower, anywhere from 10 to 15%. So it depends on what size those agencies are in the shop. Agencies, do they charge for setup fees for new clients? The 64 to 36%. So it's pretty clear. 64% of agencies, yes. We fall into that category, primarily. My belief is you're doing work. That's strategy work. That could be intellectual property to you, the consultant, to you, the agency. Your time's worth something in that matter, and that company is coming to you for your expertise. So I think it's really good that they've come out with this and produced this. What I did find was interesting, though, was the number of the agencies. What other services did they offer, as well as how about the number of employees that are dedicated to paid search? Because a lot of them say that only one. They only have one employee that's dedicated to paid search. Or they say, no, there's no full-time employees that are dedicated to this. So it would have been interesting to see like the total pool of people that WordStream pulled from. But the anonymity is nice too. A lot of these shops also are providing, SEO and web dev. So that's also good to see. But then, what are the biggest challenges? And a lot of people struggle with managing their time in paid search, which I think everybody can attest to, managing time in general.
Yeah.
A lot of them say that their biggest challenge is getting new clients. So that's interesting. And then, industries. What industries do we see as growing the most? And they say there's a lot of the respondents that said e-commerce is a big growing segment, home services, real estate, and auto. So it's interesting to see that take shape, and I would be I'm very curious to see what this would look like on a historical timeline, or maybe fast forward next year to see how close or how far off those stats really were, where people see growth, and did they see growth. So I found that really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else to share?
I think that's a great place to wrap up. I'll have more to
Awesome.
share next time.
Cool. So, like I said, with the team in June, we're headed off to Search 11 in Boston. We'll probably talk more about that in the coming weeks. I'm personally headed off to the Inbounder on Monday in New York to hang out with a bunch of search professionals. So hopefully I get to see a number of familiar faces there. In the meantime, enjoy your week. Good luck. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Redirect Podcast.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.